gents have fun.
Yeah, Ooga Booga, we are all here, baby. Oh, yeah, there he is. But hello, everybody. Welcome back to the next Hotter Trash podcast, XD. If we're down one person, yeah, it's because Michael is currently feeling unwell. So I hope he recovers. We'll see what happens from here on. So, how's everyone's night going?
Good. Just came home from dinner.
Damn. Nice, Victor. And also, why the fuck you mean suck ass?
Because why not? Spice it up.
Oh, God.
Spice up the conversation, man. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm here for.
God damn. But anyways, so the people that tuned in and see the topic of today of should young people be mad? That's a pretty much a loaded question in of itself. And also in the case of our older peers, why the fuck are young people being mad for? We'll get into that in just a moment. So let's probably set up the base work of where the question comes from. To those that, if you have YouTube on the side as well and whatnot, look up a TED Talk by a NYU professor named Scott Galloway, who does a pretty decent job of explaining a lot of the troubles that I don't think this is exclusive to young people. This is just straight up like what's just happening to the US environment at this point, right?
Yeah, just whatever's been happening nowadays.
Yeah, because like the chart itself, like, yes, it's meant to showcase in the perspective of young people, but I kind of take it as if like this could apply to anybody, and this is kind of a bit of a like a kind of a danger, not dangerous, but it's kind of a worrisome trend, mind you. Such as, so let's just take for example, there's a first graph that was shown in the TED Talk. I have editing. If you guys want to, I can pop up the Microsoft Paint here. Give me 1 second. Let's do this. So we can, yeah, this podcast is going to be us talking about graphs, the most exciting thing about his.
Boring.
Well, yeah. Yeah, give me a second. Let me transition the scene so that you guys can see it. Oh my God, there's Microsoft Paint now. So let's start off with the basic graph of, in this case, something that's very American here. How many people, the percentage of US adults who are extremely proud to be American? So let's take it for example. We'll get two age demographics, 55 plus and 18 and 34. You guys are going to tell me, what do you think the percentage difference are between them, such as which one is which and whatnot?
All right, sure. We'll play a mini game. We'll play your mini game, Mr. Bowie.
Hell yeah, I will. Wait, what? Hold on. That's not the wordage here. My bad. Anyways, pick your votes in, you bitches.
No.
Where?
They'll vote. Just say the numbers. Just say the numbers. Like, how many people who are extremely proud to be American in the age group 18 to 34?
I don't know, 30, 20, 10, 0?
Oh, yeah. I give it a good 10%.
Anyways, Victor, what's your final number guess?
20?
Victor is actually a lot closer, but you overshot it by 2%. This is the actual percentage. So, to both of you guys here, does this number actually surprise you, if anything?
What is it? I mean, at the same time, what does that really mean? Extremely proud to be American.
Yeah, that's very broad, and that's
because people who are older are definitely more patriotic than people who are just younger. It's clear because they live in this country for a lot longer.
Yeah.
You come to love this country over time.
Yeah, and if anything,
and these older folks have also been in wars before, so that definitely is also add to the patriotism.
Yeah, and also I can also throw into the hat as well is that like both of the 18 to 34, this is also the age generation gap where they lived through like the most worst financial economic times in the 21st century.
Yeah, but why does that make you not like America?
That is also a very interesting thing too. But it's also like I wanted to say it's because of like I'll say for our group as well, there was like the increased amount of like times where people were like trying to criticize what the Americans or what the Americans did as a country to like other countries. historically. I think that's where like the rising trend of like um yeah, like the Americans themselves, they were like the aggressors in a lot of cases and whatnot too. You look at the Cold War era. Yeah, there was a time too where like the CIA had to topple over some democratic regimes for one case or the other, and then vice versa. But guess what? History tends to be like that. And really, this was also the most shakiest time for America as well, since, you know, Cold War era with Russia. So, like, victory through any means necessary. And even to the people probably in that generation back then, they knew that this was probably not the greatest situation. Hell, even the older generation were like against the draft during the Vietnam War era. But obviously some parts of it they were kind of more or less accepting. I don't know, this is more or less a guess on my part, right? Now, I'm not saying that a lot of people are 100% agreed on it. There's definitely are a strange group of people, and especially this time in this generation now, we have even more people that have more voices. Honestly, way more than they should be, and they need to get off the internet for once and touch grass.
Absolutely agree. I 100%. I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people they need to get off the internet, including us. Why are we still on?
That's why
Well,
I play card games.
Well, for me, I'm running the fucking podcast. How else am I going to find content? So,
I don't know what you're talking about.
anyways, the next graph I'm gonna show you guys. This is something that was point up too. In this case, the U.S. federal minimum wage. Even though we've heard talks about the fact that they were going to increase federal minimum wage, even when adjusted for inflation. Oh no, wait, this is a number adjusted for inflation. It hasn't really changed much.
But
At all.
but this whole minimum wage argument is I don't know, Jed. I think what we need to ask ourselves is, do people understand what's going to happen once everybody has a certain minimum wage, like $15 or something?
Right.
Because
Yeah,
economically, it's a pretty bad thing.
Yeah, I will say economically it is a bad thing, but it
And
also really does.
I'm not saying that it's bad that everybody should be paid $15 an hour. I'm saying that it's either people get paid $15 an hour, and then probably a lot more people will be laid off because these restaurants, these shops, these places just can't afford that many people at $15 an hour.
Right. So well, it's like, why do I bring up in this case the federal minimum wage part as well too? Well, obviously, for those that live in America and know what's happening too, just the cost of everything has been going up like year after year, which is something that like in the most like economist way of like how to know if your country is actually developing well, inflation can be seen as a good thing. But the problem is the fact that we now have inflation rates that are really just much outpacing the spending power of an individual. Such as the fact that, yeah, your typical like $20 that you go for like a simple like 3 days worth of groceries, yeah, that $20 is only covering like one night. And it's also like getting even scarier too when you start factoring in like you hear news that like Dollar General is increasing their prices from their most expensive being $5 to now $7. Firstly, when I said that, I was like, why the hell is a Dollar General have a $5 option on there in the first place?
Yeah, because they're not a true dollar store anyways.
Yeah.
But I think going back to that inflation thing, I just want to add in that the rate of inflation for these past few years during the pandemic has been
not helpful.
I do have a chart here, and during 2021, inflation was 7%. 2022, inflation was 6.5%. Last year was 3.4%. And the average inflation that the United States is targeting is 2% a year.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep in mind.
God damn. Yeah, that's something that we do have to keep in mind about all this as well. Just because like things get very dicey too when it starts coming into like, okay, let's say we now are making money. In this case, we have a decent like 6-digit salary job, right? Unfortunately for a lot of people too, anytime like anybody wants to think about owning a home, which is something that's like a quintessential like aspect in an American life, is that home ownership kind of deal. Hell, it's even preached a lot of times that like if you're successful if you own a home. But obviously, you look at this graph right here too, something is definitely wrong here. Where the medium home prices have been going up and up, and it's you can see the differences based on, you can tell that more people have actually more income going into their homes, but there seems to be something going on where obviously why are the prices just straight up like people in this case that are rating prices, they're just saying let's just go up. People have the money, right?
No.
And you can definitely tell too that like you see like what happens between 2005 and 2010. What happened then? That was during the 2008 Great Recession crash. And even if that was the case too, it barely, in this case, goes down any lower than when we were born. And then afterwards, it goes up here, and then pandemic happened, went down for a bit, and it's still going up. Like, what the hell? And it's also one of the few things that, like, if you were looking at this and you try to think about it in the young person's point of view, where they're fresh out of college, they got their 6-digit job, and they're still trying to live off of like the rental apartment that they have, trying to save up for it. But obviously, rent prices are also increasing, so therefore they can't actually save money now.
Yeah, they can't save money. They can't really do much since everything else is going up in price too.
Yeah.
Food and all their necessities too.
Yeah.
Utilities are going up in price.
Yeah.
Everything's going up in price.
Yeah. So this is, in this case, we're framing it in the words that like these are people that are currently in our generations that are working. But obviously right now our options of like trying to like make it go to that upper threshold of being a successful life, which in this case is a home ownership. In the end, let's not really like try to say like we had to define success there. This is like part of being an American at this point, home ownership. That has been in the Constitution. Yeah, it's, I don't know if it's baked in a Constitution, but it's implied heavily. It's implied heavily, but
it is not.
Well, oops.
Have you read the Constitution?
Probably not. I'll probably need to read it
you
once
sure
more.
You're American, Brian?
I don't think you should make that assumption then.
All right, so we're gonna go back to the next one. So there's also a lot of like news as well too, that like for both of you guys here in this too, where you just hear like there's been like the most massive transfer of wealth from like a younger population or younger generation to, in this case, the top 1% in America. In this case, what do you, I want to hear your opinions about that when you hear like news articles that talk about that.
I'm so lost. Like there was a bunch of words that made no sense in conjunction with each other. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
Brian, explain to Loy. Explain it to Loy in simpler terms.
Okay, so obviously right now, with the way like we're already talking about how a lot of people's like wages haven't really improved much, only because of the fact that everything else is going up in prices, right? It feels as though like there's a lot of articles that are being showcased out that even during the pandemic, where a lot of the COVID relief funds were supposed to help average Americans trying to survive, let's be honest, I don't think $2,000 was actually going to help anybody at all, but it didn't matter anyways, because all that $2,000 money went straight into like other spendings to a company providing services that people do need in their everyday lives, such as the fact that there's claims that there's been a siphon and the largest amount of like wealth distribution going from the middle class to the upper class or the top 1%. This is also like the argument that we have where there's a shrinking middle class. And I'm trying my best to explain it to you, but really essentially like, even though like, let's just say on the books, everything looks like it's actually improving economy wise, but you in the individual point of view, nothing has changed. And if anything, things have just gotten harder. So it's like the numbers don't really make sense to you as an individual person that's living through like, you know, in American society. And then you hear all these news and articles about like companies making record profits during the COVID years. We're going to talk about this on another week podcast where video game industry were also the biggest benefactor throughout the whole phase. But let's stick with, in this case, the whole wealth siphoning from lower middle classes to upper wealth classes. So let's take, for example, during the pandemic era too, a lot of people were essentially just staying at home, right? And a lot of times people were also just spending money off like either going on Amazon or spending more on streaming services, because that was also like the most biggest gold rush for anybody that's doing streaming services or like e-commerce. Yeah, so that's pretty much like what the claims is pretty much talking about. And so I honestly want to hear your guys' opinion and takes about that. If it feels like all of the wealth that we were getting, in this case, doesn't matter if it was from COVID relief funds or whatnot, it's just all of our income is just going straight into the pockets of the top 1%. That is essentially what the rhetoric is going for.
It is. It is when you think about it. So when you pay for your mortgage, when you pay for your rent, it definitely goes into the richer person's pockets, not yours. And during the pandemic, when people had a lot of money, they started pouring money into the stock market. And where does the money in the stock market usually go? To the 1%. Of course,
So, yeah.
everybody has their own share, has their own piece of the pie, but the ones who own the majority of the shares are obviously the 1%.
Yeah, like literally the biggest winner of all are the ones that actually fucking own the things that you are using.
Yeah. So yes, so because of Robinhood and because of all the quote unquote free financial apps, stock market apps out there, yeah. So the world, and that made it more accessible for young kids and young people like ourselves here on the podcast to invest in the stock market. So when we do that, our money really just inflates the pockets of the 1%.
Therefore, we also saw in this case the whole like stock market itself, like everything that you saw that were like value companies, all of their prices were definitely overvalued just because the amount of influx of people putting, in this case, money that was received from the government straight into the stock market and not into like try to help each other. Now, mind you, that's not a bad idea for an individual person, but mind you, once you get a good enough people to put into it, it starts becoming a problem.
Yeah, it becomes an overvalued stock market. But there's been a massive push recently for people to invest in the stock market to prepare for their future and things like that, which is understandable. It's something we should do. But at the same time, the transfer from the young to the old, the stock market is a big contributor to it.
Yeah, and it's insane too that like, hold on, we look at it in this case, for example, look at the ratings that you have to do or the amount that you had to pay for a monthly mortgage. We'll go back to the topic in this case, but really you see it in this case for as of February 2019, the average person's like mortgage rate, depending on it too, I don't know, this is literally a general blanket statement here, it was around $1,102. And so who has a fucking calculator on this side too, how much does like a person with like 50 or 40k dollar salary make a month? Because I'm assuming like 50 or 40k is like sort of average kind of, but I know 60 is supposed to be the average, but we'll just assume 50 or 40.
About 50 or 40, so 50 is about 4k. We'll just do 4,000 a month, whatever.
All right, do 4,000 a month, right? And then we immediately go to February 2024, and it's now you had to pay 2,000 a month. That is literally that person's half of his monthly income there gone into just paying the mortgage. Yeah, more than half. And now it's like to the point like they now had to work with what they have left over to try to spend onto other things. And guess what? Everything else is going up in prices as well, because obviously, let's be honest, the way how we think how inflation is working, there are just some people that are increasing the cost just because they just see inflation. If price goes up, we got to go up in prices as well, which is understandable, but it also just...
that's half true. I mean, like some places. Yeah, I don't understand why rent's going up. That's just because of demand, not because they need to raise rent.
Yeah. Yeah. Rental
I don't
prices
understand.
going up.
I mean,
It's yeah.
when people making products and raising prices, yeah, I mean it's understandable because supply is probably like increasing costs as well. So you can't really fault people that are making products because they're dependent on the suppliers too.
Yeah.
But people renting out homes that are just raising prices because they can. It's pretty. That's just pretty like shitty, I guess.
Yeah. It is pretty shitty too, just because half the time as well. What other services does, like in this case, a home or landowner have to actually quantify or had to warrant to actually increase prices? What would be the only thing that makes sense?
Actually, there is plenty of things.
Oh, okay.
Property tax is one. Insurance is another. Depending on where you live, HOA.
Oh,
Oh,
fuck the
HOAs are
HOA.
the worst. HOAs are the absolute worst.
We
No,
still have to do a topic about that.
insurance and taxes are the biggest expense to a house.
Mhm.
Biggest expense of a house. So recently, yeah, this is just an example coming from me because I know I helped my dad pay some of these insurance stuff. Insurance from last year to this year has been raised by I think around close to 100% for me.
Mhm.
So
God damn.
last year I paid about $2,000. Well, not me specifically, but my dad paid about $2,000 for the house. Now this year is upwards to 3,000.
Mhm. So
Well, it's not 100%. I lied, but either way, it went up a lot.
yeah. So I'm gonna bring you back into this, Lloyd, because I know damn well you don't probably have the least amount of things to say about this, but I also want to hear what the type of stuff you would say in this regard.
What regard?
So knowing in this case too, let's say for example, like before you worked where you were at too, what was like the expected salary based on the job that you were initially trying to go for, that you were hoping
Probably
to get?
like probably 40 to 50 to be honest with you. With a freshly new graduate,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, with little to no experience, with like under a half, like not even half a fucking year of HR. So,
But yeah.
I don't have anything to supplement that, which is why I'm getting a certification to make it look more appealing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm doing. Obviously, it takes time, but if you work your way up, you get more money,
Mm-hmm.
certifications. You're better qualified. They look at the resume like, oh, this person, seems appealing. Let's bring him in, talk to him, see what it's like. So
Yeah.
pretty much a struggle. I will not lie. So
Yeah.
it was definitely a struggle. So I had to settle for this current job, but I like the job though.
Yeah.
Then
So
eventually I gotta move out
yeah.
or
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah. We'll go back. We'll circle back in this case. In this case, what you said is actually really like important for at least the final message for this. But we'll continue on a little bit. This next chart based on that video as well by Scott Galloway. This is something that is this case, the transfer of wages versus wealth, such as COVID funds being used to put into the stock markets. In this case, this S&P 500. I had to do a double take on this graph because I swore when I look at that, I thought the blue line was the axis. No, that's actually our median income line graph. Like, what the fuck is this?
But what does I mean? Well, okay, Brian. My question to you is, how do you interpret this graph?
Well,
What does comparing wages to the
yeah.
S&P 500 really
Uh,
like? What does that compare?
Yeah, if anything, this doesn't really do much either, just because the percentage change in this case, the percentage change for median income, it's supposed to say that like there's barely any changes to our income, but because like you're comparing it to the S&P 500, which right now we know in the news is probably the most profitable that it's ever been, right? There's so much money in that stock market where at this point right now, it becomes a vicious cycle where the government has to at least like keep the stock market going because there's so much money put into this. If that falls, everybody's money falls with it.
Correct. because a lot of people nowadays invest in as 401ks. They have retirement accounts, and that's all linked to the stock market.
Yeah. So it's not like
So I mean,
yeah,
wages stay there, but people's future is in the stock market as well.
yeah. Which is also like it becomes like a problem for like the younger generation where they just see like how much in this case the future is beholden to the performance of the stock market versus in this case actually making stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that like they do at least have a sound argument for that too, where we're a part of the society right now too where we're only just focused on like wealth generation no matter what. And it makes sense too. With the more wealth that you have, the more things that you have access to for other stuff to make as well. That makes perfect sense why the in this case stock market is just as important. But I think the problem that the younger generation has is that how much of an importance this is putting onto people's financial decisions versus actually trying to make a difference kind of shit in their own individual lives. Because obviously the way how they probably see it too is that like yeah they can put money in the stock market but in this case they won't be able to see the returns by the time they're old as hell, and by the time they're old as hell they're not going to be able to do shit anyways because they're fucking like burnt out tired from just working their 9 to 5.
I mean, that's how our previous generations did it. So what makes
Yeah,
us any different?
yeah. So I think I think that is actually a very much a very good way to really put it too, just because the people before us they had the same. This was
They did
also
the same
sort of like
thing.
the same. Yeah, they did the same thing that we're currently doing right now. I think that probably the biggest benefit. I don't know. I don't want to use this as a throwaway word, but I do think that social media does actually point in this case a picture of an idealized version of living life, right?
Their idealized version of living life is just doing nothing.
Effectively, yes. But in let's go into like I'm gonna pose this question to you. Would that also still be like in this case would you frown upon anybody that wants to pursue like they want to just do nothing in life if that's like their goal that they want to do,
I mean,
like in this
they
case
can do
they
whatever they
actively work up
want.
to it?
They can do whatever they want. Honestly, I mean, it's not for us to it's not for us to judge whether they can do nothing or not. You know, like I don't know. I don't think we should judge whatever people want to do.
Well, I think they're just lazy sacks of shit. I'm just kidding, no.
Like,
But
are we talking about they just do nothing? Like they literally do nothing for the
okay.
rest of their lives, or they work until they don't have to do anything?
Because there's no such thing as doing nothing. Let me make that very clear.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because that's pretty much impossible. You have to do something.
yeah,
Yeah, if you're gonna do something, you can't just sit around and do nothing. Playing games is still doing something. Let me also make that clear.
yeah.
Yeah,
At least yeah doing that is still something. I think clearly what people want to do is the fact that they don't
I
want to
think
like be part of in this case a everlasting cycle of just constantly like working your ass off kind of deal.
so.
In this
That's
case,
why that's
mhm,
why your goal should also be to find something else to do besides working 9 to 5 constantly.
yeah,
I mean, like finding a side hustle or something else to bring in income too.
make something.
yeah,
Like do something that makes you happy.
yeah,
Something. You know,
Yeah,
this
that too.
is
Or yeah, the reason why people are getting burned out is because they're in jobs that they just cannot like at all.
yeah.
I mean,
And
and then
it,
a lot of people are gonna say, you know what, just you just gotta swallow it and just do your job. But you know, that's just not gonna work out for some people.
yeah, it's not gonna work out for a lot of people. Which, if anything, I think this is like a sentiment that's like being shared and like being internalized for a lot of, in this case, even our generation too. Where just the fact that like we see in this case like we are working like these 6-figure jobs. Hell, it'll be amazing we could find a 7-figure job. Actually, I say 6-figure, but really it's 5 figures. If there's anyone that actually does get the 6-figure jobs, they're probably set for a bit. Hell, we even saw too that like for those
That
that
depends on
actually
where
want to,
depends on where you live. If you're in Texas, yeah, 6 figures would definitely help a lot. But if you're
yeah,
and you're in San Francisco or California of some sort,
yeah, you're absolutely fucked. There's nothing else that we could really say to make this any
All right. When we
flowery
say we're
language
good
about
with
that.
when we say 6 figures is good for us, it's because we live in Texas.
Yeah, like
Granted,
that's
I'm
just
sure
it.
in the future the cost of living here is gonna go up to a point where 6 figures is gonna be like what was it?
Or
It's not
the
gonna be
six
much.
figure is going to be the new 5 figure wage jobs.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, if
Middle
anything, we're
class.
not
How
like,
did I forget that word?
well, it happens. But really, it does like go into, again, young people just don't feel like there's an actual opportunity or future for them, just because the fact that everything else is just outpacing them, no matter how hard or fast they're trying to work into it too. And it's obvious too that like they had to put so much work and effort to it that it's like it feels inhuman to try to do this shit. Which, if anything, a lot of people do agree with it too. A lot of times too. Um, the 40-hour work week was also something that was only pitched by Henry Ford, right? Just so that he didn't force people to like work at his factories like 60-hour weeks.
I think it was more than that.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, 40-hour work week was because of that too. But even then, that was mostly for manufacturing jobs now.
Mm.
And then it goes really into like anyone that's working in a corporate field. Although this is more or less like everybody, at least me and Victor here, worked enough in a corporate enough jobs that it's just like it fucking blows half the time.
Mhm.
Because half the time, like, you're working there, it feels like you're making a difference, but in the end, you're just part of a small cog of a machine where nobody really gives a fuck about you.
Essentially.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing that I want to say, the biggest takeaway about all of this too, is that there's no, the younger generation, they don't feel like they have a purpose in the future anymore. Just because everything else doesn't matter. Their money doesn't even matter anyways too, because a lot of the decisions is being made by like the most richest people. Hell, even though bribing is supposed to be illegal, but yet we can lobby. The fuck?
Yeah.
And that's basically legal.
Illegal bribing. Yeah.
That's legal bribery. Bribery. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Everyone said
I don't
that.
know. Make it, it's like one of the things that I also agree with the younger generation, where I'm just like, yeah, I mean, fucking make it make sense here. Like, what the hell?
I don't know. I'm indifferent about it. Like these young people's opinions.
Yeah.
To be honest
But
with
that's
you.
also,
Like,
yeah.
go ahead.
Like, again, this is also because, like, again, people's definition of like what they should be mad about is going to be vastly different if we ask the next person, or what are they mad about. And it was like, ah, fucking damn it, I can't do anything because my wage never goes up. I can't get a job anywhere else. I'm stuck at this job. Okay, cool. What about you? What are you mad about? I have this house, but the fucking taxes on this shit keeps going up too. I could barely afford my mortgage now, and I had to cut everything. I'm thinking about like selling my house and just go for a rental now. Okay, cool. And what is this guy mad about? I'm homeless. Okay, never mind. Like, there's a
Yeah.
lot of things going on. There's a lot of things that are happening for sure too. Which is to say, to the current U.S. economy crisis and the whole like environment too. It's not just affecting young people; it's affecting everybody. Let's be perfectly honest here. This is a
Mm.
problem that's not exclusively to younger generation. This is also just like straight up, like, even we have like other, like, our parents or family members that are just questioning too, why the fuck is everything getting more expensive now? And it's just like it becomes very like annoying too, because again, if it's not made apparent to all of us here, we are definitely Asian from a family that first came to America on the boat or flew in, or they were nationalized normally. Take that with, hopefully, please don't take that out of context of it making it paint a weird picture about me. But they did everything they could to keep us afloat here, and it worked out for them. Just because, hey, look at all three of us here actually fucking talking about this shit. We have the luxury to do that.
Well, in the past,
Yeah.
everything was much cheaper. So
Yeah.
it's not like they're. It's not like they're let's pretend our parents had to immigrate over to America. They got all their paperwork, all that,
Mhm.
all that good jazz. Come over in today's age. Do you think they'll be able to still do it, knowing the prices that we're living in right now?
It's one of those things too that like I wouldn't want to say no to, because there definitely is still a way for that. But that's just the mentality difference is the problem with that
Yeah,
argument.
it definitely is just mentality. I mean, my dad used to tell me the story that whenever he came over to Vietnam, came over from Vietnam, so it was him, my mom, and my brother. All he had was $45 in his pocket.
Yeah, and it's like,
And years
yeah,
later, he was able to buy his house, buy his own house. He was able to raise my brother and raise me as well. Paid for all of our schools,
Hmm.
like like it
college, and
wasn't
stuff.
easy.
So it definitely
Yes.
wasn't easy, but clearly, if you have the will and you have the drive, it's doable.
Yeah. Now, it's not, and I don't think too that like the takeaway, the lesson for this too is that like you gotta just like fucking man up and try to do it. But honestly, that is like the end of the day advice at this point too, is that like you really just at this point, it is a mentality of like pull yourself out by the bootstrap, which is also some reason that's also a really dumb idiom. I also agree
Yeah,
that I don't like that as well.
yeah, it's kind of weird.
Mm,
But
never
the
used
main
it.
the
Yeah.
main lesson is that you really just gotta I guess just do your best to pull through life,
Yeah.
Figure it out.
figure it all
You would
out.
say?
Yeah, like figure it all out for yourself too. But you also, as well, like during this time too, there's actually one good thing that happened during like the COVID like pandemic too. There was like a massive amount of people that because they were stuck in their homes all day, they had the time to do self-inflection of like trying to figure out, is this something that they really want to do in life? And a lot of people found like their passion in other things too. So it's like in one, you have in one arm here, right? Where people are genuinely mad about the situation that they're in. Whereas you have another group of people that are not talked about more frequently because they're not the one that's bitching and moaning right now. But they're succeeding in life because A, they're not really tying themselves, like they're not tying their own self-worth to like the state of the economy here. Because obviously, like to that arm of people, the I'm gonna say arms of people, and it's gonna mess me up here, guys. But in this case, this group of people that have decided to take the action of finding something that they like to do, they're living in this case much better lives that they feel personally that this is something that's way more fulfilling, and it's something that it doesn't need to tie in with money. If it does have to do with money, they'll probably work a little bit here, get some money here to pay some basic stuff too. But in the end of the day, they're still doing what they want to do in life, and that's already enough fulfillment for them. I think we just also have like a, quite frankly, a still a quite big group of people that feel like they're lost and helpless right now just because the environment that they're in doesn't really allow them to like change that much or to have access to other things. Oh, thank you for the follow, whoever it was. I can't tell because Microsoft Paint is covering the fucking thing.
Yeah.
But thank you for the follow, whoever joined in. But
It was my secret AI account.
what the hell? No, you can't do that. I'll be accused of botting. No. Anyways.
Cancelled.
Canceled.
but but anyways too. Because this is something that like I want to tie it back to your message that you said earlier, Lloyd, that at this point, like you at least found something that you're happy with like working with too. I think the
Mhm.
main problem is the fact that there's obvious too that there's just a lot of group of people that are just not happy with the work as well. And it's some things too that like they're trying to figure out like in themselves of like if working in this case other jobs will actually give them happiness and whatnot too. And I'm like, that's something that like if you're trying to pursue happiness, that's also another bad way of looking at it too. At least for
Mhm.
me. At least for me. Because the way how I kind of view it as well too is that like you have to at least the first step in actually like finding the place that you're working with, and if you're trying to be happy, what in this case is going on is that they're not happy with themselves right now.
Hmm.
Because let's be
Correct.
honest too, let's be honest too. Though when we went to school as well, how many of us too had like all of our schools and lessons too just catered around just only focusing on STEM?
Uh,
Like,
Well, technically me, but at the
yeah,
same time, I also had
I
other things to do.
I don't
yeah,
think it revolved with my major since I was in a business major.
yeah. But if anything, I'm mostly going to be like talking about like from public schooling up to college. Like STEM was like the highest priority.
Mm.
Well, I mean, well, math, well, obviously is always part of the core curriculum, no matter what. But other parts of like science and math. What was the other? What was the other parts of it?
It was like science, math, technology, and engineering. I think that was it.
Okay, well, science and math is like the core of
Like a lot of
all the
education.
curriculums in school, so
Literally
that's fine. That's normal.
every day.
But technology and engineering, that doesn't really apply. That doesn't really apply until we start choosing our majors in college.
Yeah. And I think like I at least this is something that I'm gonna put my tinfoil hat here, right? A lot of times because like the schools before, the public schools were mostly they were built around the fact that they were trying to like get kids ready to work in manufacturing jobs, which
Mhm.
makes fucking sense. The only reason why there's a school bell was so that people could get used to hearing, in this case, alarm bells to when they're on break or they clock in or clock out of work or when work is done. Let's be honest.
I feel that.
But with STEM, however, it's essentially the same shit that has happened with the way how a lot of these kids were going to manufacturing jobs, but instead they were trying to. Grooming sounds like a weird word to say about this, but it's essentially, yes, but it is essentially they're trying to build these kids up to start working for these big tech companies.
Essentially.
Preparing them.
Yeah, it was essentially, yeah, preparing them to work in these tech companies the same way how, in this case, the generation before us, they were being prepared to work in manufacturing style jobs, which, if anything, back then, those jobs gave you hella money.
Indeed. Indeed.
I mean, that's why people are preparing these kids for these kind of jobs because
Yeah.
they make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I mean, what is the point you're trying to get at here? Because obviously
Mhm.
everybody's gonna there's a lot of people that just want a job and then just want to live like a simple life, you know.
Yeah. I think right now, this is something that we'll probably cover way more about this on next week too, but it's like essentially like the whole we see the news tech layouts that are happening everywhere. And these are like the people within our generation that at this point right now, yeah, all these tech companies and all these other like white collar jobs too, they're no longer just straight up hiring anymore because they realize, fuck, we hired way too many people. We got to start cutting off the corner pieces of fat. And it's like a decent chunk of the population that's in our generation that
Mhm.
I'm assuming that they themselves, all they know how to do is just doing what they were taught in school, which was like a lot of STEM related courses. Because outside of that, it's just like, oh, all we got left right now are like the blue collar jobs. And that's also another problem that also is something that needs to be addressed too, where a lot of times people frown upon like working blue collar jobs.
I,
I want,
I think.
yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I would like to say too, fuck you guys for frowning upon them. I had to work at a fucking gas station. That shit absolutely sucks, but it was necessary.
Can I ask you a question on that regard?
Yes.
Did you, when you first got that job, did you frown upon it as well, or did you?
Nope.
Okay,
Because like
I just wanna ask that.
yeah, I was in no position to do this either. Mind you, I'm the group of people, not to say that I'm unique, but I could classify myself as a fuck up here and there. Like I said, I
I
would
wouldn't.
like to
I wouldn't describe it as that. I just think you didn't. Like, it's
yeah,
there's just life just happens.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, if you want to be honest, you didn't take it seriously at that one
Yeah,
point in your life. That was it.
Yeah, I didn't take it seriously at
and
one point in my life, and it obviously affected my college career, and it also affected me getting an internship. Yes, so that was something that I will at least will 100% put that on myself for. That was in this case my responsibility, and I did not take that seriously.
Hmm.
But
Do you
I
feel the
digress.
kids are this? Do you feel the kids are kind of the same way? Are they not taking responsibility and just blaming society, or how do you?
That
Mm,
it's I think there like here's the thing about it. A lot of the arguments that the kids make, there is a hint of truth about it, but there's also in this case, you're also right as well. Like two truths can also exist here, right? Where these kids, they are definitely like complaining, or in this case, they are in this case mad about like an actual problem that's happening in the US. But obviously, if you really look at them as well too, and you ask them like, what are you doing to fix it too? A lot of them are not going to feel like they want to be held responsible for their inaction here.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of like that going around. And I don't think like we should look at this in a way that like we are trying to like alienate or try to fight or be like aggressive towards the people that do have that thing, right? Or that do
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
like they're
yeah, yeah.
oppressed about this. Because obviously, yeah, if we do that shit, we're gonna be no better than what we were like 5 seconds ago.
I
So
thought you were about to say something.
yeah, were you
I
about to,
I feel people just need to be told certain things so they can just get off their asses. That's just me per se. But nowadays we do have to watch what we say. So we
Mm-hmm.
have to word it in a way that's not it's not so hurtful to them, and it's not an attack on personal attack on them. But we can still get the message across, and they can go do something.
yeah, because
That's
obviously, yeah,
That's not
because
my strength. I'm sorry.
yeah, I know you're as blunt as a tungsten bat.
But that's
God.
that's just the world like that. The current society. That's how we live. Personally, I would just say, get the fuck up and go do something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what
Honestly,
you
Like,
saying, bro?
yeah. And here's the thing too. We already have like a lot of other people that are currently they are doing just that too. They're either like just straight up like, yeah, we're just gonna leave the tech industry and we're just gonna do our own shit for once. Like we're gonna actually do stuff that we weren't able really to do that much or explore that much from school. Either oh excuse me. There's actually like a very interesting like measure to I can't find it, but there's actually a lot more people that actually either go back into school or they go into trade school to learn a lot more different things. Because guess what too? An electrician can just make as much money as an accountant job.
I think it's just as an important job as any other job.
Yeah.
Well, they can make six figures, is what Brian's trying to say.
Yeah, they can also make six figures. And guess what too? It's like for them, this also feeds the purpose of like they are actually doing something and it's actually like helping people.
Mm.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
that's me.
Also, this day and age also has a lot of entrepreneurs as well. People are just like making businesses and things like that. So also
Yeah,
something else to consider.
yeah. So it's not like in these argument that Scott Galloway makes too, he does have a lot of points as well. But there's also like the other side of the coin as well, where there are people definitely succeeding that we obviously do not talk about because a no one wants to talk about other people's successes.
Well, at the same time, the number of successful people still is not as much as the people who are struggling.
True, there's that metric as well. So, with that being
And
said, I don't.
besides, like I said, not everybody wants to do trade, or not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, or things like that. So
Yeah.
it just really depends.
Hmm. So,
But this whole situation, what I would say is, people should definitely not be a victim
yeah,
and blame society, and just figure out what they want to do and what they need to do.
yeah, and
That's my hot take.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the hot take, at least for my case, would just be straight up like, I think really like for the people that have already are succeeding in life as well too. And I think there are a lot more people that are trying to help people like guide them into what they're doing. We got to do even more of an effort to like help like people that in this case are part of like the big tech layoffs and whatnot too, that there are different avenues that people can go into that one doesn't even feel like a hustle culture, but it's actually something that's like a fulfillment to oneself, such as like you'll be able to get to do something that a you'll be able to still contribute to society in this case, which if anything a lot of people like despite the fact that how much they hate it they still want to contribute one way or the other. there's no
I
there's nothing
understand.
wrong with that.
Yeah, but honestly, for the people who got laid off at tech companies, I feel like they have a pretty big advantage because they worked for a big tech company.
Yeah, they have a
That's like
big
coming out. That's to me like coming out of Harvard.
yeah. So with that as well, for the people that have got laid off by Ubisoft and whatnot too, make a company and fucking
yeah, good
topple
luck.
Ubisoft over. I don't care how long it takes to. I don't want to see that company no more. But mind you, outside of shitting aside too. So we're gonna go into the Scott Galloway's, like, in this video, he does in this case a list of things that are considered doable economics, something that is doable that could probably help a lot of people. So we're gonna start criticizing that a little bit here. So bada bing, bada boom. So we have here now. So then we have here in this case, we already in this case pretty much tackle like increased minimum wage to $25 an hour. It sounds like a good idea, but who knows what really is going to happen. Obviously, there's
gonna
the
be massive economic repercussions. There's no way around it.
yeah. If we at least try to do it like immediately $25 an hour, yes, it will definitely do that. That's why there should have been already been in this case, wages should have already been like climbing up with the inflation prices. That was the problem here, was the fact that wages were not following up the inflation price.
Yeah.
So there's some merit to that, but there's also like an asterisk after that. And then amount for a high income and corporation. Essentially, he wants to like tax more of the high income and corporation, which, if anything, sure, makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, that's how it always is. That's the argument. That's the same argument back and forth between presidential candidates, and everybody in the 1% is always about taxes.
Yeah. Yeah. And then this one, refund the IRS. Fuck the IRS. I'm kidding, no. But no, I'm kidding. I think they're very much an important part of, in this case, how taxes should be run. And if anything, please redo the taxes so that it's actually more comprehensive, for fuck's sakes. Because half the time, I don't even know what forms do I fucking need. Although, to be fair, though, people that do already do file taxes, and to those that haven't done taxes for themselves and they're doing it for the first time, you mostly worry about your W-2 unless you do stock trading. Then you have a separate form that they'll give you. That's about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing really
Well,
complicated.
You can do your taxes online, and they'll show you like step by step what you need to do. So it's not like difficult to do. You just gotta put in the time.
Yeah, you got to put in the time, and it's not even that difficult. And to the people say that like they need to have classes that teach you how to file taxes. Why the fuck would they do that? That sounds pointless.
It literally is probably like a couple hours of learning.
Yeah.
Really, you just literally follow the website and what you need to do.
Yeah. So anyways, we shot that argument out. Reform Social Security. This one was at least like something that was kind of interesting, but in like further way of like trying to define it, it's like still will be difficult to try to implement. Such as he says, instead of just saying for Social Security, instead of just like giving you money if you have a catheter, you should be giving them money based on color. In this case, how much green they have. If you don't have enough green, obviously you should be able to qualify for Social Security.
I think the current system, the current system is kind of like that, because it's basically you get the amount of money you get back through Social Security is how much you put in through your working years.
Yeah.
The only problem is there's too many baby boomers out there, and then Social Security is paying for all these baby boomers.
Yeah.
And older people, older generation folks.
Yeah. Yeah, we won't get too much into politics, but all I will say to the U.S. Congress is literally a geriatric retirement home.
By the way, like Social Security, yes, it needs to be reformed for sure. There's literally a lot of things wrong with it.
Yeah.
But the fact that it doesn't have enough money is questionable.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that is going on with like the way how this too, where there is merit to, we do gotta reform the way how Social Security is done, but to what is the correct solution, we obviously don't know. And then there's the negative income tax. That itself is essentially the UBI, Universal Basic Income. That itself, I feel like that's another topic, because that's something that I want to talk about in the next week as well. So there's that. But it's because a universal basic income is going to be more prevalent due to the fact that artificial intelligence is going to be used more relevant in our workspace. And there's no way about it too that like companies are probably going to be pushing for this. They're also going to be pushing, in this case, universal basic income, because obviously they need money being spent by the consumer.
I have some pretty philosophical questions that I'll save for next week. Next
Yeah.
week.
Yeah. And then in this case, eliminate capital gains exemption. I'm pretty sure this just means that like there are like tax exemptions that some people can like go through to not get.
Capital gains is when you sell something after essentially first in stock. In the stock market case, after you hold a stock for a year, once you sell, you pay capital gains tax.
Yeah.
And capital gains is a lot lower than income tax, and they just want to get rid of that, which is understandable. But the reason why capital gains exist is because the U.S. government wants people to invest in the country.
Yeah. And so there was at least good intentions behind it, but obviously there was a lot of people that were straight up misusing that exemption. At least a small percentage of people, at least. I don't know.
Misusing in what way?
I think it was something that like either like stock buybacks weren't like being classified, or stock buybacks were not like accounted for the exemptions as well. I don't know the validity of that.
You're buying back a stock with what?
Well, like I said, maybe I'm pretty much like spitting out my ass at this point. Sorry. I can't really find a way to describe what I was about to say either, because I was kind of just saying it at top of the dome.
Is when a company buys back their own stock. That doesn't have to do anything with capital gains.
Fair enough. Anyways, that was me like spitting stuff in the top of the dome, and I'm like, ah, shit. Nope, I don't got an answer for that either.
I mean, he's only pissed off. I mean, the guy, Scott Galloway. Galloway?
Yeah, Galloway.
Yeah, I mean, he's only pissed off at capital gains is because it's just lower than income taxes. But even then, once you reach $440,000 in capital gains, it's 20% tax. So it's not super low, but it's lower than income tax at that price, at that range.
Yeah. So, like I said, I would encourage you guys to actually watch the videos too, not to like agree word for word for what he said, but really just think about what he says. I think that's probably the best way and how he wants you to do.
We shouldn't argue with his ideas, but more we should understand and form our own conclusions on why he thinks this way.
Yeah.
And we should I guess, think in our own way as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because obviously the whole like rhetoric that he's going for is the fact that in this case, the generation of his time, like the older generation, are effectively like putting up even way more roadblocks for the younger generation to be able to be active participants in the economy. That is his only thing about it, because here's like
they're putting up here's the quick question. Do you think that old people are putting up roadblocks for young people to not be rich? Or do you think it's because old people it's essentially just old people trying to be rich. They're just not really stopping the young people from being rich. They just want to keep and maintain their wealth first.
Yeah, I think it is the latter for this regard, then. Because like a lot of times when I do hear it, it just feels as though that like the rich people are purposely trying to stop like these kids from making wealth. But when you word it that way too, it's like, it's not like it sounds like it's intentional either, but hey, we don't know these people enough too. Who knows if they're actually fucking Scrooge McDuck either, so.
Maybe, but at the same time, when we have money, what do? Then, we should also do our best to maintain it as well. Like put in a savings account and invest it and all that stuff. We're doing our best to maintain our wealth.
Yeah. Just like as soon as we buy a home, we become very much closer to how traffic occurs, where traffic occurs, which if anything, and what I'm trying to put in that boat is all the NIMBY people, which is an acronym for not in my backyard, which is also why there's a lot of development projects that get canceled, where in this case, NIMBY people may or may not be 100% at fault in the increasing house prices. There's an asterisk on that may or may not be, only because there's like a very interesting talking point about that. But anyways, here, Here's the other part where in this case, the doable part, which is technology, which I do agree with a couple things here. I do agree that we need to break up the big tech companies because they're obviously way too massive for their own good. But in all actuality, I don't know how we can actually accomplish that, honestly.
Exactly. It's easier said than done.
Yeah, it's easier said than done for sure. But in a sense, too, like the way how a lot of people feel about it, it's like, yeah, these big tech companies, they're way too fucking massive. But what's the answer really? Like, we could try to see that they get broken up, but we don't know what to. Because let's take, for example, Steam here, right? Steam in this case definitely holds the monopoly of having a digital like distribution platform for a lot of video games online. They definitely have a monopoly just because of the fact that it's the only platform that has so many people using it, and they could get away with, in this case, anytime you sell your game, you have to give 30% of the profits to Steam. If there was a better platform, people would definitely go for that. But Steam is the go-to here for both like a lot of like game devs and a lot of like just normal consumers. It is what it is.
Indeed.
So, like I said, that's mostly an example for that one, but it's also kind of a valid example here. Let's be real. There's that, and remove 230 protection for algorithm.
I don't even know what that means, honestly.
I think it's essentially like the way how social media is like using like people's personal information to feed into algorithms kind of shit. Maybe that's what he's going about on that one. Which I think we already talked about it too, where like again, these big social media platforms, yeah, there's actually like if you're using their product for free, you're not getting the benefits of product. You are the product to this company.
No, yeah.
So
This
there's that.
whole break up big tech argument. I do understand where they're going for, but at the same time, what happens after you break them up? I mean, they become small companies, but then what if they eventually become big companies again?
Yeah,
You know,
it's like
you just do it again. You just keep breaking them up constantly.
It does become like its own like cycle of like, yeah, like I said, the break up the big tech, that's something that sounds really good, at least right now. Should we do this every so often? I don't know.
I do. It's government overreach, 100%. But at the same time, I really do understand where they're coming from. But let's take Apple for example. How do we split up Apple?
God,
It was like make phones and laptops and stuff like that. Like, how do you split them up?
like I don't know, separate in this case the phone production with their actual like component hardware side of Apple. I don't know. That also sounds like it doesn't make sense either. It's really hard to, yeah, like I said, it's something that like I agree with this idea, but how do we do it? It's like, what the fuck then?
Yeah.
Mind you, I only agree in this case what the idea stands for. Not in this case do I know that there's like an actual practical way of actually solving that issue.
I'm sure nobody does. That's why these big companies are still big companies.
Yeah. Like, for fuck's sakes, I don't care about what happens with Meta anymore. They already fucking tanked their own shit from that point on.
How Meta can go into the ground, it doesn't matter. But Microsoft, I know how to break up Microsoft. They can sell Activision again.
No, they can't. They have to justify the fact that they are now in a hole of $70 billion.
Yeah, they got to sell them off for $70 billion.
But who's going to buy them?
No one.
They're fucked.
They should split off their entire gaming division. That's how they should do it.
Yeah, this is effectively, yeah, this was something that I want to talk about next week, was pretty much that. There's a lot of interesting news about that too, and that's something that like every one of us could do because we're fucking nerds. This is a lot more of like a philosophical and kind of personal finance talk again in this chat, in this group once again. I don't know. But this was something that was really Yeah. But if anything, this was like an interesting like thought experiment, really, of like if this is more or less to help me at least to like gauge myself, like where am I at in life? If I'm like complacent with where I am, or do I want to know if I could do more? Which is obviously I know I could do more. Hell, why do you think I'm doing this fucking podcast?
What do you think? We're doing this podcast, Mr. Bowie.
Well,
Damn,
shit.
he excluded us right off the bat. It's my
Hell
fault.
yeah, I'm
Excludes Michael. Now he's including all of us.
look. I'm sorry. Look, I had to.
Including everyone in the chat right now. Everyone who's watching right now.
Yeah. Look, you're all living in my world. That's it.
I live in my own world. I don't live in your world. The fuck?
I'm the main character.
No, I'm the main
I don't
character. But like I said, apologies for everybody that is listening. That this was, in this case, a lot more of a philosophical talk more than anything. But this is something that like
but
it's
should
good.
be, you know. This is what the topic is about.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
should young people be mad, Mr. Bowie? What is your hot take? What is your hot or trash take on that?
Like I said, I think if anything, there is in this case the circumstances deems them that they have the right to be upset. But then my follow-up question after that is, what are you going to use that aggression, or in this case this anger, towards? Are you going to use it to just complain, or are you going to actually put it into yourself and try to improve yourself? Because there's like the bigger problem with the fact that like a lot of times people have no way of where to like channel their own emotions to in a productive manner.
True. A lot of people just keep it to themselves.
And remember, it's never good to bottle up your feelings. You got to channel into something, but complaining is not one of them. Like I said, that is yeah, people are gonna complain like what I do sometimes. I will complain, but I'll still do it.
Yeah.
Like I said too, it's the same shit too as well. Am I gonna do cardio? I'll probably have to now. Am I gonna enjoy it? Fuck no. Will I still do it? Yeah.
Run your ass off, boy.
Yeah. But if anything, the topic itself, like we're already hitting the hour to 16-minute mark. Do we have any other last hot or trash take on this one before we end it off here? At least that was my hot or trash take on that one. It's like, yes, people are right to be mad, but it has to be like, you have to do something productive with like your emotions here.
Yeah, I think earlier me and Loy said something very similar, so we probably have the same ideals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I just say, like you, just to reiterate, yeah, there are plenty of things that we can be mad about, but it's really up to the individual to find the solution of what they want to do and channel that anger, their fucking pessimism into something more productive instead of just sitting moping around.
Yeah.
I agree.
yeah. Just like how I, in this
Bitching
case,
and complaining, you gotta do.
yeah, just like how I did the same thing about my mechanical engineer degree. I literally finished out and never changed my major out of spite towards myself. It worked out. I don't know if it was quite mentally the healthiest option, but it worked out in some ways. I'll probably have to deal with the repercussion at some point, but we'll cross that bridge later on.
I mean, you're here with a job within your field, kind of. So I say you're doing pretty good for yourself.
Duh. And also, we're doing this podcast, so if anything, I'm at least living life at that point.
This is the podcast where he lets out all of his aggression.
Yeah, effectively, yes. Such as the fact that I hate working with government entity companies. They could fucking suck ass for all I care. Excuse my language for that part, but
Bro,
it is effectively
this
so.
whole podcast, bro.
My bad. I'm
this opinion based.
True. It is opinion based, but I could probably do
this podcast, bro. This whole podcast since last year, bro.
Yeah, like I said, I'll try my best not to swear that often, really, because I know it's bad. But you know, it is who I am. It's hard to really break that habit, but it doesn't stop me from.
Yeah.
But I'll at least try. All right, I'll try.
I will say there's a time and place for everything, Mr. Bowie.
Indeed. But if anything, with no other further ado, thank you again for tuning in for tonight's podcast, everybody.
Thanks for
Thank-
listening to our rambling.
Yeah. Thanks to listening to our ramblings of like the least incompetent people to probably talk about subjects like this.
Makes it the best,
Why
bro.
don't we just talk about video games, stuff like that? We're more
I
competent
mean,
than
we're
that.
also technically least competent in that either because we're never good at video games.
Yeah, we all got.
I think that's just you.
Hey, fuck you.
I don't know, man. I think I'm pretty good.
So you fucking here gloating his ass right now, you bitch.
Yeah, I'm just confident.
All right. Anyways,
We'll call it that.
anyways, thank you all for tuning in. Good night,
See
everybody.
y'all. Have a good
Bye.
afternoon, morning, whatever, wherever you guys are at.
Yeah. Deuces.